going on, Fourth and Inches podcast listeners? You got Dan, Kevin, Stevie P coming at you. What's going on, fellas?
What is going on, world? What's going on, boys?
What's up, listeners and guys?
All right, so today is Monday Breakdown. Remember, we're going to get into our waiver wires as we're talking about the game. So, pay attention. We'll throw some names out there of guys that you can pick up on the waiver wire. Of course, we're going to touch on the news before that. But first, don't forget to check us out on our website at www.fourthandinchesff.com. That's www.4thandinchesff.com for a bunch of content. You got articles, blogs, players' profiles, and you can subscribe to our VIP access. This will give you access to DFS info, and will still keep you updated on the cheat codes, which we update monthly. So check those out, and also look for us on the Fantasy Life app. We'll be doing start-sit questions throughout the year on there. And if you're listening to the podcast, make sure you hit that subscribe button and give us a 5-star rating. And now on to the news.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story. And I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
All right, so the news, we have Jalen Ramsey will not practice Monday. He says he has the flu. Of course, we all know about his ongoing situation. So, they're saying he may not even practice all week. The Jaguars were saying they're not going to trade him, but obviously Jalen Ramsey still wants to be traded. So there's going to be a little bit of a hold up there. So we'll see how that whole situation plays out. Darius Slay said, "We'll see," when asked of his availability for Week 4 against Kansas City. If Darius Slay is not out there, it is going to be problems for Detroit, because they're already going to have problems. Julian Edelman injured his chest yesterday. He's slated for more tests, but I think they didn't reveal anything serious, and that he is, he's questionable, but more of a week-to-week injury. According to Ian Rappaport's Saquon Barkley, or according to NFL Network's Ian Rappaport, Saquon Barkley will be out for 4 to 8 weeks with a high ankle sprain. Cam Newton has been ruled out for Week 4 against the Texans. Falcons strong safety Keanu Neal will miss the remainder of the 2019 season with a torn Achilles. That sucks for them. ESPN's Adam Schefter reports Colts safety Malik Hooker will miss 4 to 6 weeks. So that's actually two players in that game, 2 safeties in that game that got hurt. Eagles coach Doug Peterson is optimistic Alshon Jeffrey will be ready for Week 4 against the Packers. Please, God. Jets coach Adam Gase said everything looks like it is trending in the direction for Sam Darnold to play in Week 5 when they come back from their bye this week. Coach Zach Taylor said he doesn't want to make a timeline on A.J. Green's return. Falcons running back Ito Smith is in the concussion protocol. Coach John Gruden said Monday that we've got to get more out of Josh Jacobs as a receiver. Eagles wide receiver J.J. Arcega-Whiteside has a heel problem and was listed as a did not practice for Monday. Deshaun Jackson was listed as a did not practice for Monday. Alshon Jeffrey was limited in Monday's practice. Coach Frank Reich stated T.Y. Hilton re-aggravated the quad, and we'll see how he progresses this week. So pay attention to that, because T.Y. has been really, really good so far. Aaron Jones was listed as a limited participant for the Packers in Monday's practice. Packers' Jamal Williams was listed as a limited participant in practice. So pay attention to the Green Bay running backs. Field Yates reports that the Cardinals have cut Michael Crabtree. Well, that was a quick stint. Patriots placed fullback James Devlin on injured reserve list with a neck injury. That hurts for them. James Devlin has been, a really good lead blocker. 49ers cornerback Kello Witherspoon has been diagnosed with a sprained foot and will be sidelined for at least a month. Kyle Shanahan thinks Tevin Coleman could return to practice next week. They are on bye this week, so hopefully when the 49ers return to play, Tevin Coleman will be back on the field. Coach Pete Carroll said, "We still believe in Chris Carson despite his ball security issues through 3 weeks." Bears kicker Eddie Pinheiro is active for the week 3 against the Redskins on Monday night. And that is pretty much it. So, anything you guys want to touch on in the news? Anything that we can't touch on when we talk about the games?
Saquon Barkley's pretty big. It's a monster blow for New York, especially. We'll get into it a little more in depth, but they look like a completely different team, new attitude, new spark. And for him to go down they know it said 4 to 8 weeks, but from everything I was, hearing about and reading about today, it's definitely going to be probably more on the longer side of that. They're even talking about holding him out till I think they have a bye week, week like 11. So they're thinking about maybe holding him out till right after the bye just to make sure that they don't rush him back and whatnot. This is their franchise player, so pretty crappy for for Saquon. Just I feel for him. He's just an awesome player, awesome guy. So sucks because he's always got MVP type abilities.
Yeah, Keanu Neal is the only really thing I want to add because I'm not really going to hit on it when we talk about the Falcons. So, him going down, if you look at the Falcons defense from last year, what happened to them after he went down, they started giving up a lot of points and a lot of yards.
It was him that got hurt in the game against us, right? Who was?
Yes.
Because who's their other safety?
Both guys got hurt. It was their linebacker.
Who was the other guy that got hurt? Who's their other safety?
I'm trying to think.
Keanu Neal and
it's gonna.
They got 2 really good safeties, and they both got hurt against Philly last year. Yeah. But I'm pretty sure Keanu Neal was the one that was out for the season.
IR, yeah, blew it. He ACL, I think it was.
ACL.
Yeah.
And now
ACL last year, and then the Achilles this year. He was on the ground. He was bawling his eyes out because he knew right away. I think they said he was screaming, "It's my Achilles." So he knew that he snapped that thing, and that's just frustrating, dude, for a guy who's as good as he is to be, back-to-back years just down and out, man. That's a lot of recovery time.
Yeah, it sucks for the player, but for fantasy-wise, you were already starting guys against Atlanta. Now it's like gangbusters. Just attack Atlanta's defense.
Yep. I think that's pretty much it. Malik Hooker is another one. He was drafted in the first round for the Colts a couple years back, and he's been known to be more of a ball hawking safety. Tore his meniscus. He's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks with torn meniscus. So, Colts secondary could get a little bit of a beating too over that time.
Yep. All right, let's get in these games. Right.
So we are going to start with the review, reviewing yesterday's games. We're going to start with the Bengals and Bills. Steve, take that one.
All right, so Bengals and Bills game. It was actually a pretty good game. The Bengals in the first half were god awful. It was really, really bad. But in the second half, they kind of came to life and started moving the ball. The Bills defense was just everything they tried. They were just all over them. I've been saying it. This Bills defense is very good. There's no other way to put it. It's very, very good. The Bengals came into this game with the most passing yards in the league, and if you watch that first half, they didn't look like it. I want to say they had like 47 yards passing at the end of the half, which was that's pretty crazy. That's crazy for any team. I don't care who it is. But Joe Mixon was basically a non-factor in the first half. The Bengals just couldn't do anything. And then in the second half, they started to come to life. They started figuring out that Joe Mixon can catch and started throwing him the ball, which really helped his fantasy day because he had one catch that was, I believe, went for like 26 yards. It was a really big play for them. It kind of sparked a whole scoring drive, and it was really big for them. John Ross should have had bigger numbers than what he ended up having. He was 2 for 22 in the game with 6 targets. He probably should have been somewhere around 80 yards. He dropped a slant pass that probably would have gone for 40, 50 yards. And with his speed, it might have gone for a touchdown. It hit him in the hands and he just dropped it. So, that's just tough luck. Tyler Boyd was very good, considering the amount of pressure they were putting on him. If you watch the game, they were using linebackers to get in his way in his routes, just to, give Teron Johnson a little bit of time to catch up, it looked like. But Tyler Boyd still had 11 targets, 6 catches for 67 yards, which didn't kill you. Auden Tate is probably not somebody that you're going to be picking up, but he went 10 targets, 6 catches, and 88 yards in this game. I feel like they kind of just didn't know anything about him because some of the catches he was making was kind of just, 9 route, boom, catch, oh, good job. It wasn't really anything that I would think is sustainable. I think the Bills were just kind of caught off guard because they didn't, there's not much tape on Auden Tate, so there's not really anything you can say about that. Tyler Eifert, he was basically non-existent. I'm almost going to say that you can't start a tight end against the Bills. Last week we saw it. Evan Ingram in garbage time, caught 2 passes for like 47 yards. And if he didn't catch those 2 passes, he would have been, I think it would have been like 3 for 20. So, unless you have like a superstar, you just don't start guys going up against the Bills. On the, Giovanni Bernard, I'll talk a little bit about him. He really wasn't used in this game. It made me very confident in Joe Mixon because, Giovanni really wasn't used at all. And they decided that they were going to give, Joe a good workload. He scores the 1-yard receiving touchdown, which boosts his stats. But, 15 for 61, he averaged 4 a carry. It's kind of I wouldn't say a coming out party the way I thought it would be. I thought he would get like 100 in touch. He ended up having 100 and a touch, but because of the receiving yards, it's not exactly 100. It's like 95 or something like that, but, pretty close. And, that's it for the Bengals side of the ball. The Bills, the defense is awesome. If you have the Bills defense, you see it. Josh Allen, in this game, he threw 36 passes, which was kind of a surprise. They went at the end of the game, they went down, and the second half they started throwing a little bit more in the fourth quarter. But 23 for 243 and a touchdown, an interception. The interception was just god awful. I don't know who the hell he was throwing to. It was just he basically just airmailed it right to the Bengals. He had a couple of air mails in this game that were a little bit frustrating. If you were watching the game, if you picked up Josh Allen because you lost Ben Roethlisberger, you're probably a little bit annoyed watching it, but it is what it is. Frank Gore was a pleasant surprise in this game. We kind of knew, we said it, the Bengals defense is terrible. Start every running back that goes up against them, and Frank showed that is 100% true. If you have a running back going against the Bengals, they are going to score some fantasy points, period. Josh Allen also, he did help you out with his legs, 9 for 46. Some of those runs were, I think he had 3 carries inside the 20-yard line, so they were, design run plays, but the rest of them were just him ad-libbing again. He likes to do that, and he's good at it. So, TJ Yeldon, 8 for 30. He's not anybody I'm picking up. Dawson Knox, in this game, honestly, I would say the same thing that I said about the running backs, about the tight ends with the Bengals. Dawson Knox has done nothing all season, and in this game, he caught a 43-yard pass. He basically just, ran the safety. I can't even remember the safety's name that he ran over, but he literally just ran him the hell over. And, he caught I believe it was like a 7-yard touchdown or 8-yard touchdown in this game. Nothing spectacular, 3 for 67 and a touchdown. I think that's just due to the Bengals being terrible. John Brown, in the first half, had 4 for 51 and then didn't catch a pass in the second half. It was a little bit frustrating if you had John Brown because you were like, ooh, he's starting off good. In the first half, already 51 yards. He could possibly finish with 100. They just started really honing in on him, and he just, he just wasn't open. And the 2 passes that he was open, Josh Allen airmailed one to him, and the other one, Knox got in front of and caught it. So Cole Beasley, 8 for 48 in PPR. Definitely pick him up. He's just being targeted like a maniac. Josh Allen is just, he's looking for him. He is looking for him all over the field. He is definitely their first down guy. When they're looking for first downs, they're just throwing it to him. So definitely you want to pick him up. And then that's basically it. There's not really anybody else on this team that I'm going to tell you to pick up. There is, TJ Yeldon if Frank Gore gets hurt. But, other than that, TJ wasn't used in this game. He really wasn't. So, that's about it. Cole Beasley and, John Brown shouldn't be available in your things, in your fantasy leagues. But, if he is, you definitely need to get him now. He should be 100% owned and started. And that's it for the Bills.
That pretty much wraps up the Bills Bengals. Dan, you want to add anything to that?
Nah, I think Steve covered that whole game pretty thorough, so I'm good.
All right. So next is Eagles Lions. Why don't you get into that one?
All right, this game, I'm not going to show too much homerism, but frustration settled in because, as an Eagles fan, I'm going to use the word we, and we made a ton of mistakes from the start, to the end. We dropped 7 balls, fumbles, let up a huge kick return touchdown. Set their first possession before they even had to put the offense out there. Defensively, the Eagles they looked decent. I mean, they didn't get burned like they did against Atlanta, but Stafford had 201 yards and a touchdown. Marvin Jones had a big day. I mean, if you're a Kenny Galladay owner, you were very frustrated. He had 2 for 17. Danny Amendola 4 for 37. I thought Danny was going to have a bigger day, but they seemed to shut him down. The running game for Detroit, just like the running game for just about everybody that Philly plays, was non-existent. Carryon had a ton of carries, which he had the 1 touchdown that saved him on some points, but he only had 36 yards rushing. Only caught 1 ball for 7 yards. So I thought Carryon was going to have a bigger game but I thought he was going to see more work in the check down area, but that wasn't the case. Hawkinson, 1 catch, 1 yard. He was another guy I thought might eat up this Eagles secondary, but he was shut down as well. I mean, the only relevant guy on the Detroit team was Marvin Jones with that 6 for 101 and a touchdown. He was all over the place. He was making big plays too on third downs. As far as the Eagles go, Carson had a solid game. He did not get help. Like I said, the 7 drops were huge. Some of them were, they got late in the game when Goddard had that 1 ball dropped in the end zone. They got that touchdown back to Aguilar. But then, a lot of people said the very last play should have been caught or could have been caught by JJ, and he took full responsibility for it. It was a tough ball. It was a 50-50 ball. I mean, you got 2 6'2" guys going up at it. I mean, it's just who wants it more. And JJ's only in his 3rd game as a pro. So, hopefully he'll get better and he'll learn from that play. But on the Eagles side, Miles had 13 for 53, but he did have that big fumble. So he's got to mature a little bit. Miles had an excellent receiving day. He had 2 receptions for 73 yards. He broke a couple long ones, a 40 and a 33. So, PPR wise, he was relevant. He was the only running back relevant for the Eagles. Jordan Howard actually did have a touchdown, but only had 37 yards. Nelson had a big day. I mean, we spoke about him as if you needed a waiver wire pickup. We said, look at Aguilar because he's going to be, we weren't, obviously D-Jack was out. And Alshon Jeffrey was questionable, and then Alshon didn't go. So, Aguilar became the number 1 option behind Zach Ertz for targets. Actually, Aguilar got way more got more targets, but Zach Ertz normally is the most targeted guy. And Aguilar went for 8 for 50 for 2 touchdowns. So he didn't, have any explosive plays, but he had a lot of short yardage. So, but it was a very relevant day for Aguilar. I am going to say that watching these games now that we have a year and now 3 games with the new offensive coordinator, and I'm not going to get we'll break down the Indy game, so I'm not going to get into that too much, but I am going to say that Eagles run when they made the Super Bowl might actually be more Frank Reich related than it is Doug Peterson, because Frank Reich, look what he did last year. He took Andrew Luck, who most people thought he's not playing football now, but most people thought he probably might not play football anymore with his injuries. Took Andrew Luck into a MVP type caliber season. And now he's taken Jacoby Brissett, and Jacoby looks incredible. Marlon Mack looks like one of the top 5 running backs in the league. That defense is playing really good. And they're winning games. I mean, besides that Chargers game where they lost in overtime, this team could be, they could be 3-0. So, Frank Reich is heavily missed in Philly right now. Not really anybody on the waiver wire to look at. I mean, all the top, big names. If Aguilar is still sitting in your waiver wire, I don't think he is, because he was the number 1 option coming into this week for Eagles. But if he's sitting in your waiver wire, definitely pick him up. But if Alshon is back, don't expect another 2 touchdown game. I don't think, because Alshon is probably going to work into that load a little bit. And Ertz had 4 for 64 with no touchdowns, but Ertz normally gets more than four receptions a game too. So Carson and Aguilar definitely had a nice little connection in this game. That's all I got.
Yeah, this game frustrated the hell out of me, so I'm not really going to add too much more to it. So, Steve, you got anything to add to it?
No, just that TJ Hawkinson, you can't drop him, but, you can't start him either.
No.
So, I would hold on to him. Don't overreact and drop him. And then, I'll be honest, I didn't watch too much of this game. I watched like the first quarter. But it seemed to me like they have him blocking a whole lot. And I don't know why, because, he saw how prolific a pass catcher he was, in week 1. Obviously, the Arizona Cardinals give a lot of, points to the tight end position, but, it just wasn't just because of Arizona. You could clearly see that he's getting off the line quicker than most guys. So, I think, just hold on to him and start someone else. Do not drop him. You got to give the kid a chance.
All right, so next game we're going to get into, I'll break it down, is the Vikings and Raiders. This was a blowout pretty much from start to finish. Similar to the Vikings in week 1, their offense was very similar in this game. Kirk Cousins only threw 21 passes. It wasn't like he threw 10, but, just not enough production in the air for multiple pass catchers to get off. Like, everybody's drafted Thielen and Diggs, thinking, third round, second round. Both those guys were basically top 3 round picks. And, they're not throwing the ball enough right now. Even last week, they didn't throw. They were down the whole game to Green Bay and really didn't throw enough to, allow both of those receivers to get off. Week 1, Thielen had a touchdown. Last week it was Diggs. This week Thielen had a monster day, or had a pretty good day, I should say. He only caught 3 for 55, but he gets you the touchdown and gets you the rushing touchdown as well. So, Thielen has a good day in the stat sheet, but they're not really. They're running the ball. Dalvin Cook is literally a monster. Okay, Dalvin Cook literally could be the first overall pick next year. That's not even. I'm not even kidding. The way this guy's looking right now, Dalvin Cook might be the first overall pick in next year's fantasy drafts. Kirk Cousins was just a game manager at best. He really, he was 15 for 21. Did average 8.3 an attempt, but he, like I said, he managed the game. He had a long one to Thielen for about, I think it was 35 yards. So that was pretty much his longest throw. And without that, his average goes down a lot. So like I said, he really was just managing the game. They really didn't need him to win it. Cook was a monster. If you own Dalvin Cook, you need to own Alexander Mattison. Need to. It's a must. Like, this is a handcuff that you have to do. Like, you have to trade for Madison, because Madison is showing that he is actually not bad himself. And I think it's a lot to do with their scheme. I think they're creating a lot of open running lanes in Minnesota. And to me, I don't think Madison will be as good as Cook, but I think if something does happen to Cook, and we know he's had a little bit of an injury history, Madison will fill in just fine. From the wide receiver perspective, Diggs, we talked about him the other day, and we were, neither one of us were really that low on him, but I mean, after watching this, you got to kind of have to be. I mean, he only got 3 targets. He caught all 3 of them for 15 yards, but he really just was not used in this game, not utilized at all. Thielen, like I said, he had the 1 long touchdown, but outside of that touchdown, like you're talking 2 for 20 from Thielen outside of that touchdown. So, just the passing game for Minnesota is really, really questionable. I think you're starting Thielen if you have him, but I think if you have Diggs, you might want to look at a replacement. From the tight end spot, Irv Smith caught 3 for 60 in this game and actually had like another 20 or 30 yarder down the field that got called back on a hold. So, his stats could have really been nice. I think it was kind of just the way the game flowed. They had a lot of double tight end sets out there with them running the ball so much. So I don't think he's necessarily a guy you have to go out and pick up right away, but definitely pay attention to Irv Smith as a guy they drafted, I believe, in the first. They draft Irv Smith in the first round? Steve? Irv Smith, first round pick?
Second round
pick. So, Irv Smith was definitely somebody that they wanted to get involved. And, in this game, he was. From the Raiders side of the ball, Derek Carr, he was checking down a lot all game. He had a ton of passes and literally he was literally throwing 5-6 yard passes to Darren Waller all game. Darren Waller was a target machine. He got 14 targets in this game. Tyrell Williams was literally shut down. He didn't even have Xavier Rhodes on him all game. He just was shut down. The Vikings D, really keyed in on him in the passing game. He salvaged the day at the end with the touchdown, but other than that, you're literally looking at a 2 for 14 type of game from Tyrell Williams. Not really a huge game, but it's still startable if, in PPR leagues, just because, say for instance, Diggs, he had better game than Diggs, and a lot of people are starting Diggs still. With a running game, Josh Jacobs, everybody's questioning Josh. I feel like Josh Jacobs is a buy low right now, an absolute buy low. I think that they're going to have no choice but to get him more involved. They don't really want Derek Carr throwing the ball, 35, 40 times a game. And you heard John Gruden say that we have to use him more in the passing game as well. So, Josh Jacobs over the last couple of weeks has been pretty bad, and I think he's going to definitely improve, and I think he's definitely a buy low candidate, from people who drafted Josh Jacobs and are unhappy. Outside of that, like I said, this was a blowout type game. Not really even fun game to watch.
Yeah.
All right. Anything you guys want to add?
No. Yeah, I agree. That was a debacle, and like you said, Cook he looks like a completely different beast.
Yeah, there's that offensive passing game is really not existent right now, but they're winning football games, and Dalvin Cook's the reason why. So they're gonna roll with the ground and pound.
I'll tell you what, I am gonna pat myself on the back with that article that I wrote about Dalvin Cook, because it legit is coming to fruition exactly the way I wrote in that article. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, they've just decided to go completely run heavy. I think they know what they got in Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins is not somebody that's going to win you a Super Bowl, but he won't lose you a Super Bowl. So, and I think that's what they're going to do. They're going to rely on that defense, rely on the run game, and say, Kirk, when we need you to make a play, go make it. Next game, Jets and Patriots. Steve, it's all you.
Oh boy.
Have fun.
Okay, so
This should be quick.
Yeah, this is going to be very quick. The Jets, you can't even I don't want to say you can't play Le'Veon Bell because you drafted him, and they're on bye this week. Thank God.
And then they get Sam Darnold back. So yeah. After that, it should be a little bit better.
Yeah, but in this game, I'm not breaking down the Jets. You guys saw it. They had less than, I believe, 120 yards of total offense. That's insane. That's like that's just pathetic. On the Patriots side of the ball, Brady did exactly what I said he was going to do. 300 and he got 2 instead of 3. I'm sorry, but Tom Brady looks just as good as and I hate to say it, but he looks just as good as he did 5 years ago. The dude is just. He's extremely accurate. He's actually making passes downfield that we haven't seen him make in a long time. This has been a very dink or dunk offense for a very long time. And Philip Dorsett and Josh Gordon opened this offense up a little bit. And he's making some passes downfield. I think he completed 2 20-yard passes downfield in this game that were just like, you couldn't be any more accurate. They was literally just dropped, boop, just right in his hands, boop. On the one play, Gordon got smashed and, he left the game for a minute, but he came back. Tom Brady is just everlasting. The dude is a vampire. Like there's no other way to put it. The dude is just never going to die. He's just going to be tormenting us for the next 50 years. It's ridiculous.
I don't know about that long. He ain't gonna be grandpa out there throwing balls.
Dude, my man's gonna be in a wheelchair completing touchdown passes. It's ridiculous.
Did you see that, Sonny?
Exactly. Other than that, Sony Michel was just horrible in this game. There's really no other way to say it. Like, I think the Jets kind of figured, like, hey, Brady's gonna do what he's gonna do, but Sony ain't getting nothing. And that's basically what happened. He ends up getting you I think it was like a 2-yard touchdown, which, basically saved Sony's day. But my man was 9 for 11 and a touchdown. Rex Burkhead actually looked good in this game. He was breaking off. He had 11 for 47, but he broke off like a 19-yard run, which really boosted his numbers a little bit. And he ended up having that rushing touchdown. Like I said, Josh Gordon caught a couple deep ones. He had 11 targets in this game. And we talked about that on Friday, how without Antonio Brown, Josh Gordon was going to be the biggest benefactor. And to me, it was clear as day that he was. Julian Edelman ends up getting hurt in the third quarter. He would have probably had a much bigger game. He had 10 targets into the third quarter. So he could have easily finished with, 8 to 10 catches and, another 30, 40 yards and finished with over 100 and a touchdown, easily in this game. The Patriots just had their way. Philip Dorsett, we told you to pick him up on Friday. If you didn't listen to us, pick him up now, like immediately. This is a must pick up. He's 53% owned. He needs to be owned in every league. Tom Brady is looking for him, period. Is just no other way to put it. Dude had 7 targets in this game, caught 6 of them. I'll tell you what, he has to have one of the highest completion percentage when thrown to in the league. In week 1, he was 4 for 4, 98 and 2 touchdowns. Last week he was 3 for 3, and this week he is 6 for 7. You know what I mean? So literally, my man has missed one completion. He's just crazy. It's crazy. But yeah, you got to pick him up. And other than that, there's not really, Rex Burkhead. I'm not going to tell you to pick Rex up. And the reason I'm not going to tell you to pick Rex up is because James White didn't play in this game, and that made a huge difference in, I think, White's numbers. I don't think he gets as many carries as he got in this game. He definitely doesn't get as many catches as he got in this game with White playing. So, Rex is, if you want to handcuff Sony, I think he might be, I don't think Damian Harris even is the handcuff to Sony. I think it would be Rex. I think they would throw Rex into the Sony role and keep James White his role. So, if you want to pick up Rex as a handcuff, go ahead and do that. But, I'm not going to tell you to pick him up to be a guy that you're going to start basically at all. And that's basically it for this game. Patriots defense. Patriots defense has given up a field goal all year.
They actually have not giving up a touchdown dating back to the AFC Championship game, 16 quarters.
That is crazy.
Yeah, it's really crazy.
Thinking
Yeah, I mean,
about
and
that.
you see the box score in this game. It's 14-30. Both of the Jets touchdowns were on defense. They ran a fumble back.
One was special teams.
Yeah, special teams, and then an interception
Yep.
that what's his name, the safety,
Jamal Adams. Yeah.
ran back.
I hope. See, like the way this trend's going, what's he like? This is his second year, right?
Second year, yeah.
So he's got 3 more years. I swear to God, I hope he's our replacement for Malcolm Jenkins when he hits free agency.
Oh, he's
Because
not
that
staying
dude
with the
ain't
Jets.
He didn't even want to stay there if they don't
No,
get
he
that.
wants to leave now. Did you hear what he was saying
he's
the
a-
other day? He was pissed.
He's a playmaker.
Yeah, he was pissed the other day. He was talking.
Huge playmaker.
Yeah, the media was asking him questions, and they were like, how are you feeling? And he's like, how do I feel? We suck. he's like, I don't know who
Ain't
wants.
wrong.
I don't know anybody who wants to lose. He's like, and I
Ain't
don't want to
wrong.
lose. You know what I mean? So it sounds to me like he wants to get out of there real bad. Yeah, I mean, and he deserves to be on a good team because this Jets team is not what we thought. Like, we thought this team would be okay, maybe pushing for the playoffs. This team ain't pushing for the playoffs. And I'll tell you what, even with Sam Darnold, I don't think they would be pushing for the playoffs because they're just the wide receivers are not even getting open. It's not, Falk was bad, he was terrible, but you watch these wide receivers, like, they're not getting open. They're not helping them at all. You know what I mean? Crowder, week 1, had 37,000 targets. You know what I mean? And didn't even break 100 yards. So, these receivers are just not getting open. You know what I mean? It's a dink and dunk offense, and they're not going to win games like that. Period.
Yeah, they're a 2, maybe 3 win team this year.
All right. So next game is Bucks and Giants. Dan, that one is you.
All right. This was the NFL appearance of Mr. Daniel Jones. This was a great game. This game was awesome. If you were hoping for a breakout from your Tampa Bay Stars, you got it on this one. It actually, Tampa Bay was up 28-10, and Daniel Jones came firing back. You could just see the competitor in him. He's just different. But this game was loaded with loaded with stats, loaded with stars. I will say that Evan Ingram is elite to another level. He's coming for Travis Kelce for that number 1 spot. He's not there yet because Travis is way more consistent than anybody, but this boy is just special. Just a special, super talented tight end. He had 6 receptions, 113 yards, and a touchdown. And I mean, he broke that 75-yard touchdown down that sideline, and his breakaway speed he burned a corner. So I mean, it was crazy to watch. Poor little Jackrabbit, who was an awesome corner. He got smoked yesterday. Janoris Jenkins, he got lit up. Two of the 3 touchdowns by Evans was on Jenkins, which normally Jenkins is a much better shutdown corner. But if I have friends texting me and what should I do about Evans? What should I do about Evans? And the 3 of us are all firm believers that this is only week 3, and I actually wrote my blog today was about Evans and a couple other guys that when you're that talented, it will happen. Patience is a virtue, and if you were patient and you continued to start Evans, it paid off for you yesterday because he had 8 receptions, 190 yards, 3 touchdowns, and New York had no answer for him, none at all. He had all 3 touchdowns in the first half. I thought he was going to have a 5 touchdown day the way that was going, but in the second half, New York stifled up their defense a little bit. They held to Bucks to basically a field goal. The big news of the Giants was Saquon going down. Obviously, we talked about that already. 4 to 8 weeks, probably more on the longer side. As far as the Giants go, and Sterling Shepard had a big day. He was awesome. He had 2 rushes for 21 yards. He had broke a 19-yard rush. He only had 9 targets. It felt like he was targeted like 15 or 20 times. He was all over the field. 7 catches, 100 on the nose, and a touchdown. So he had a very good day. Daniel Jones was the surprise. I mean, there's no tape on him, so rookies a lot of times will do this. There's 0 tape on the guy. So they're either going to fall flat on their face or they're going to have something like this where they show up big. And he had 336 yards, 2 passing touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns, 28 yards, and obviously he had that that game winner at the very end there. Tampa Bay did have a chance to win this game in the end. They hit Evans a couple deep, routes over the middle, got themselves in good field goal range. And, Gay, who hit a 52-yarder and a couple other field goals in the game, he was pretty electric, and he missed the 32-yard chip shot that, would have won him the game. So that was big for them. But as far as the Tampa Bay running backs go, it's impossible to know who to play, because everybody through 3 weeks, somebody's having a big week for them because their offense just moves the ball and puts up points. But you just don't know who it is. Week 1, we thought, Ronald Jones was just garbage, and then he had a great week 1. So everyone goes and picks up Ronald Jones, and we said, he's got to be started. He got all the work. And then last week, the Thursday night game against Carolina, it was all Peyton Barber, all Peyton Barber. Ronald Jones wasn't even, just sideline staring the whole time. And then yesterday was back to Ronald Jones, who, didn't necessarily get more work than Barber, but he just had a much more productive day. He went for 80 yards. And he also added a 41-yard reception, whereas Barber only went for 13 for 48. So, there was plenty of stats to go around in this one. It went high, 31-32. Normally when you have shootouts like this, the stats are up there. So, as far as waiver wires go, I'm pretty sure if no one dropped Sterling Shepard, and if someone did for whatever reason, he's got to be owned, because he did, he definitely had a nice little start in chemistry with Daniel Jones. Other than that, I guess maybe pick if Ronald Jones was dropped after he was, insignificant last week. If he was dropped, if you don't have any better options, pick him up and don't start him quite yet. See if he starts to earn that number 1 job, and go from there.
Yeah, I would say actually Daniel Jones, if you're streaming quarterback, is a great pickup next week. Watching the game that's currently going on, the Redskins stink, and that is their next week matchup. So if you're streaming quarterback, I would definitely stream with, take a shot with Daniel Jones.
Yep, I don't really have anything to add.
All right, so next game we're going to get into is the Packers and Broncos. All right, so from this, let's just start with Denver. Flacco, same thing as Derek Carr. He was literally just checking down all day. Nothing really down the field, except the Cortland Sutton, and that was, few and far between. Cortland Sutton had a pretty good game, but, ultimately they were, they moved the ball well, but it was a lot of just check down, rushing the ball, getting up the field. Lindsey and Freeman in this game was basically a 50-50 split. Lindsey had 21 carries. Freeman had 15 carries. Freeman averaged a little bit more on the ground. He had 4.2 a carry. Lindsey had 3.9. They basically both had 4 a carry. Lindsey had 6 more carries. They each had 4 catches. Lindsey did a little bit better, and Lindsey had a much better game than Royce Freeman here. Lindsey was 4 for 49. And I think the key to that is that Lindsey is clearly their goal line running back. He was in on every goal line play that they had. So, to me, Lindsey is still clearly the guy you want to own in that backfield. And I know last week a lot of people were high on Royce Freeman and said he looked better. In this game, Phillip Lindsay looked a ton better. So, and that second touchdown to me with Phillip Lindsay, it just makes me love the guy. He's bottled up at the line, figures a way to squiggle around, spins off of a linebacker right into his guard, who just kind of carries him into the end zone. The guy's 5'9", 170 pounds. He's not what you would think of an NFL player body type, and he's so hard. He's just such a hard player. I really admire Phillip Lindsay on the field, because he really does stand out for, considering his body size and his body type. Emmanuel Sanders in this game was basically shut down. I'm going to be honest. He had 2 catches for 10 yards and he had a drop, but he had one of his catches was like a 7-yard catch for a first down that kept a drive moving on third down. And he didn't have that electricity, that entertainment, that excitement that Emmanuel Sanders always brings. Like Emmanuel Sanders is that guy, catches the ball, he's up, he's motivated, he's jabbering, he's getting the crowd into it, everything like that. I know they're on the road, but he just didn't have that in this game. So I hope, I don't know if he was just feeling all right. I don't know if it was just a bad day, but Emmanuel Sanders just did not have the same, excitement and electricity that I'm used to seeing out of him. Cortland Sutton, he's 71% owned in leagues, but he has to be owned because Flacco is, really, really using him. This is the second out of 3 weeks where he's, had a pretty good day, and he remains, a potential flex start, especially with bye weeks coming up. He's a guy you can definitely plug in there. He may throw up a dud, but chances are he's going to get you a 5 for 80, 4 for 67, something like that. So he's not going to get you a complete 0, and hopefully he gets into the end zone to help you out. From the Packers side of the ball, don't sweat Aaron Rodgers' stat line too much. I know it looks rough, and 235 and 1 touchdown. He didn't have any picks, but it's not the day you're expecting from a guy your quarterback that you're taking in the 6th round. But he was under pressure all day from that Broncos front line. Like that Broncos front line is vicious. With Von Miller and Bradley Chubb coming at him, and he was just under attack all game. And, it was a lot of plays where he was forced to get the ball out really quick, and it really affected his day. Aaron Jones. All right. I'm calling Aaron Jones a sell high candidate because this game was straight up 50-50. Like actually Jamal Williams got more of the carries in this game. I'm pretty sure, let me look at it right now. Yeah, he actually had one more catch than him as well. So the touches were 14-11, Jamal Williams. And, when it was time to milk the game, they went to Jamal Williams. They did not have Aaron Jones on the field. Aaron Jones running the ball was very ineffective, 10 for 19. He got the 2 touchdowns, that salvaged the day for his fantasy value. But all in all, like, he was not very good in this game. I know he had a great game last game, and everybody was really high on him. I think coming off of this, he's a sell high candidate because, like I said, if they're going to use these backs the same way, and Matt LaFleur was just talking about this past week, how he wants to get Jamal Williams, balance out their touches. So, like I said, if this is what they're looking forward to doing, Aaron Jones is going to have weeks where he completely lets you down as a fantasy owner. So to me, this is a perfect time to sell high on Aaron Jones. Devontae Adams, I was not worried about Chris Harris coming in to this game as much, and I think I should have been. He did a really good job on him. Adams only had 4 catches for 56 yards, but there's better days ahead. Like I said, Rodgers was under pressure. And really couldn't he didn't really have a lot of time to, let his receivers develop in their routes. He did say that, 4 targets for Devontae Adams is not enough, so to me, better days are ahead for Devontae Adams. I would, a lot of people are trying to sell him low. He's definitely a guy I would try to buy. I would try to buy low on because, people are worried that this guy's going to keep doing this throughout the year. And, there's no question in my mind that Devontae Adams is going to turn this around. The Green Bay defense is is very good defense, very good, solid defense to own. You saw what they did last week. Other than the 75-yard rush to Dalvin Cook, they pretty much did a good job on the Vikings offense, and shut down Chicago, and they really did a good job against Denver. Marquez Valdes-Scantling is 49.1% owned in fantasy leagues. He is definitely a waiver wire guy if he is on there. In this game, he had 6 for 99 and had a 40-yard touchdown. He is clearly the number 2 receiver. I know he wasn't used that way as much last week, but I think last week they were just rushing the ball. They jumped out to that big lead, running the ball so much. This week, like I said, he was clearly the guy, 10 targets in the game. I told you guys on Friday, something just told me, some kind of gut feeling I had told me that Marquez Valdes-Scantling was going to catch like a 50-yard touchdown, and he caught a 40-yarder. So if he's on your waiver wire, you're definitely picking him up. And Jimmy Graham is absolutely droppable. He did not get 1 target in this game.
Yep. I really don't have too much to add. The Aaron Jones, does make me a little nervous, the split, but I think it had more to do with that he just wasn't being very effective in this game. So I think game script is going to tell you who gets the ball. You know what I mean? If Aaron Jones looks like he's the better running back that game, he's going to get more touches. You know what I mean? It's just the way it's going to be. It is what it is. I like that he was the goal line guy and did get those 2 touchdowns, but it is what it is. You're gonna have to live with it. I think we had higher expectations going into the season, and now you got to think he's probably a, back end number 2 running back.
Yeah, and that's why I say I think, if your running back situation is good and you have Aaron Jones, you could probably sell him for, a pretty good wide receiver right now. You might be able to sell him for Devontae Adams with the way people feel about Devontae Adams right now. I mean, try it out. If you got to throw in like a wide receiver to make it happen, but I definitely think, Aaron Jones is a guy that I would try to sell high on if I was a owner of him. Next game we will get into Falcons Colts.
All right. This game was
that you?
Yeah, it's me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Falcons and Colts was it was a good game. A lot of yards. Matt Ryan, Jacoby Brissett, Ty got another touchdown. Brissett looks awesome. I mean, it's a bottom line. The guy is playing really, really impressive right now. And Marlon Mack looks good. It's just a balanced offense. I think Frank Wright is, we talked about, I've mentioned it with the Eagles game. I think Frank Wright is just an awesome head coach and an even better, offensive mind. So I think he's putting together a really good game plan for them. And Marlon Mack he's what they hoped he would be. I'm not gonna say what they expected, but what they hoped he would be. He had 16 carries for 74 yards and a touchdown. Ty with another touchdown. Ty is just getting tons and tons of targets. 8 receptions, 65 yards. Both tight ends on Indy, somewhat productive. Ebron had 3 for 47. Jack Doyle had 4 for 46. No touchdowns from either of those guys. Zach Pascal, he had 2 for 53 and a touchdown. I don't think Zach is really anything special moving forward, but this was a decent day for him. To actually show up and get a nice touchdown. He had a nice long run there too. As far as for Atlanta goes, this was not a huge, big day for Devontae Freeman, but it was at least something. He didn't give us anything the last couple of weeks, and he had 16 carries for 88 yards, and he threw in 3 receptions, only 7 yards on 3 receptions, so he wasn't really moving the ball when he was after the catch, but he at least he had some kind of relevant fantasy stat line. Maybe better days to come for him. Julio is continuing his great season. He had 8 receptions, 128 yards and a touchdown. His touchdown was spectacular. He grabbed that ball and basically mossed it away from him. One thing I will say is that these coaches keep on trying to do there was one play where it was an offense or pass interference call that they tried to call on a Julio play, and again it didn't go through. I don't think I've seen one offensive pass interference get overturned. I know that they can challenge these now, but I think it just slows the game down a little bit with being able to challenge everything. So I mean, we'll see how if it is relevant in any kind of big game, but right now I think it just slows the game down. There's already so many penalties between holdings and stuff like that. I don't think that the offensive and defensive pass interference really need to be reviewed. That's just my little 2 cents. Austin Hooper, another big day for Austin Hooper. 6 catches, 66 yards, and 2 touchdowns. I mean, he seems to be, definitely Matt Ryan's, second, third favorite guy here. I know they have a lot of options out there. Calvin Ridley did not really, he wasn't even, looked like he wasn't even on the field today. He had 1 catch for 6 yards on his only target. He was absent. Sanu, He got 6 targets again. Sanu's owned in like 35 to 40% of leagues. I don't know if he's quite, fantasy relevant yet, but he might be someone to look at. He gets a consistent 6-7 targets a game. He had 6 catches for 75 yards. The one thing I will say that hurts Sanu is that he's not much of a touchdown threat anymore. So, I mean, even if he's getting those 50 to 75 yards with a handful of receptions, if you're starting a guy, you want him to be able to throw in that touchdown from game to game, like your Jones and your Calvin Ridley. They're both huge touchdown guys. Well, Jones never was, but it seems like Julio is definitely hitting the end zone more this year. Calvin Ridley is a big play guy, always waiting to happen. So Sanu may be a waiver wire pickup if his production continues to increase a little bit. Right now, I would just wait and see. I don't think anybody's jumping out to really grab Sanu. But other than, he's basically the only guy I would maybe consider if you're really, really hurting at wide receiver. Anything to add, guys?
Nope. You basically hit it.
Yep. Mohamed Sanu's been around the league forever. He is. He's just a guy that, you can put on your roster and could get you a dud, but could get you, a 2 touchdown game. That's the kind of player he has been. He's a wide receiver too, and in an okay offense. So, next game we'll get into is, damn, Steve, you got really unlucky with these games. You got into the Cowboys and Dolphins. You got the 2 worst games of the week.
Yeah, it was bad. So, Cowboys Dolphins game. It was bad. So we'll just do the Cowboys first because they're relevant, I guess. So Dak has looked amazing, but Dak has played no one.
Absolutely.
And he made a couple of passes in this game that made me a little bit suspect. Like, that's a pretty terrible throw. But, the Dolphins, I will give the Dolphins a little bit of credit here. So the Dolphins secondary actually is not terrible. They made a couple of plays in this game, deflecting balls and just getting in defenders, getting in defending lanes and making it a little bit difficult for Dak. So I will give the Miami Dolphins a little bit of credit there, but really just Dak made some bad passes in this game. He got bailed out because the Dolphins are just so terrible that, it kind of, there's no other way to say it. It helped him out, making his day much better than it really was. Zeke in this game, he doesn't get the touchdown, but he does get 100 yards, so you can't really complain too much. The one thing I will say is I am a little bit nervous that Zeke is not going to be used the way he has been in previous years. When you look at this game, you can say that it was a blowout, and that's why Tony Pollard got, so many touches, but that's not really true. Tony Pollard was getting touches before the game became a blowout. Zeke was coming off the field.
I think they knew they could win with Tony Pollard running the ball against the Dolphins.
Yeah, let's save Zeke a little bit here. That's probably what their thing was.
Yeah, so Tony Pollard was being used a little bit more than I liked. To me, he looked good. He had, and this is like I said, the Miami Dolphins defense is not good. I'm not going to say that they're a good defense, but they were getting ran on like crazy in this game. To have 2 100-yard rushers in the same game against you is rough. Tony Pollard ended up having the touchdown, so that helped his day out a lot. And it was a long touchdown, so that really boosted his stats. But he still was getting touches in the first half, which I didn't like. Amari Cooper has 2 touchdowns in this game, 7 targets. Amari just the touchdowns were literally, he and Dak definitely have a rapport more than they had last year. If you watch the game, you can definitely see that. But against a better opponent, I don't know, how much I'm, thinking that he's going to have a whole lot of two touchdown games. Jason Witten, he's definitely a streaming tight end. You pick him up If you're hurting at tight end and Jason Witten's out on your waiver wire, go get him, because this is 3 games in a row where he's being targeted, where he's he's getting you more than 8 PPR fantasy points, which to me it's good. If you can get a tight end off the waiver wire right now that's going to get you a consistent 8 points every single week, then that's great. Do it. Randall Cobb, I said I thought he might have a pretty good game in here because the Miami Dolphins give up a lot of points to the underneath guy, and that didn't happen in this game. He only had 4 targets and 23 yards. He had a big first down in the first half that kept a drive going that, later on Amari Cooper, ends up scoring the touchdown. It was like a 3rd and 9 play, and he just catches a little dump off and breaks the tackle and gets the first down. And then I think it was like 2 plays later, Amari Cooper caught the touchdown. Other than that, there's nobody that I'm going to tell you to pick up on the Cowboys. It's the usual suspects, and Devin Smith was a guy a lot of people toted. He had 5 targets in this game, and that's what I mean. Like in this game, Dak overthrew him twice, real bad, like way over his head. Arrow melded the hell out of it. And that's what I mean about the accuracy issues that I have with Dak. That was a little bit annoying, but on the Dolphin side of the ball, it was bad. Yeah, I mean, Josh Rosen.
Yeah, you literally can maybe start Kenyon Drake in PPR leagues, and that's about it.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, Josh Rosen, I will say this, for as bad as the Dolphins' offense is, Josh Rosen tried, bro. Like, he was out there. He was really trying. It was just not happening. Like Kev said, Kenyon Drake, he had 12 carries, 38 yards. It did make me feel a little bit better that he was, getting more touches than Kalen Ballage, because Kalen Ballage is just bad. I said this in the preseason, and I had people yelling at me about it. He is terrible. There is no other way to put it. He's terrible. So, like I said, Kenyon Drake, and that's it. Preston Williams in your dynasty and keeper leagues. If you want to do something like that, where if you can get him for like a off the waiver wire and he's a late pick for you, that works out. But other than that, that's it. The Dolphins are just. They're
Who's
gonna
worse?
Be they're going to be the
Dolphins. The Dolphins this year, or the 0-16 Lions?
Yeah, no, because even though 0-16 Lions had Megatron and they could actually move the ball, this team can't even move the ball. They're just really, really bad.
Yeah, I agree. I actually said a couple times today, this might be the worst team that I've ever seen in my lifetime.
Yeah, it's bad. It's really bad.
All right, so next game we're going to get into was, probably touted as the game of the week. It is the Ravens and Chiefs. So this one, Lamar Jackson in this game kind of came back down to earth a little bit. He gets you fantasy points because he's going to be running the ball. And we said this, Steve said this a little bit, wrote an article about this, and we all kind of, agreed. He's going to run the football, and him running the football is going to give you good fantasy points. But all in all, this was not really a good day for Lamar Jackson. He really overthrew he overthrew Marquise Brown a ton in this game. Was really not accurate. This is kind of the first time this year we've seen 2018 Lamar Jackson. Still threw for 267 yards, ran for another 46, and got the touchdown. So all in all, you're looking at about, 12, 13, 14. He's still getting 20 fantasy points, so he still gets you a 20-point fantasy day, but he was not good in this game, at least in my opinion. They were literally carried by Mark Ingram. Mark Ingram was an animal. He did not have one negative play all game. He was literally just every carry felt like 6 yards, 7 yards, 8 yards a carry. He broke off the 20-yard, the one run for 21 that wound up being a touchdown. He goes 16 for 103, but he gets you in the end zone 3 times. This was Mark Ingram just being a beast. That their score was a little bit closer than this game really was, because they, were really up 2 scores pretty much most of the game. But, Yeah, and this one, Mark Ingram kind of carried them there, and Gus Edwards actually looked really good as well. Like these running backs they clearly were able to find running lanes against the Chiefs defense. It's not very good. From the passing side of the ball, better days are ahead for Hollywood Brown because like I said, he got 9 targets in this game, and he only caught 2 for 49 yards. Like he was still ultra targeted in the game, so don't worry about it. I mean, I'm sure Lamar Jackson will be back, hopefully he'll be back to his 2019 self, next week, and Hollywood will be catching some more balls. But in this one, it was just kind of rough. He literally was getting thrown to a lot, and just was overthrown, balls flying out of bounds that he tried to make plays on, and it just didn't happen. And Mark Andrews, he really looked hobbled. He came into the game with an injury, and he did. He looked hobbled in the game, and, he got you, he did get you 3 catches for 15 yards on 7 targets. So he was the second most targeted player behind Marquise Brown, but it was a lot of check downs. They weren't really sending him up the field. They were actually using Hayden Hurst and Nick Boyle a little bit more down the field than they were with Andrews. So I think he was just hobbled in this game. So pay attention to Mark Andrews and that injury. From the Chiefs side of the ball, Patrick Mahomes is just a football god, and nothing more I need to add on that. Like the dude is literally remarkable. Like this is the first game I've broken down on the Chiefs this year, and literally every play is just 20 yards or more. It just feels like every play is going 20 yards or more from this guy's arm. It's incredible. He
throws the ball 40 yards down the field, and the ball never leaves 10 yards off the ground. He's just got it.
And he throws it with the flick of a wrist.
Yeah.
It is incredible to watch.
The ball leaves his hand just different. Very, very different.
Yep. On the ground game, if you are a Damian Williams owner, this is a bad day for you. Bad day for you because LaShawn McCoy looked really good in this game. 8 for 54, did get the touchdown, did wind up leaving with an injury, but I think when they took him out, it was kind of precautionary because they had, a 2-touchdown lead, or might have even been it was close to a two score game, maybe even a 3-score game at the time. And they just kind of went with Darrell Williams. They said they pulled him because of an ankle injury, but he looked really good in this game. Shady might take that job away. And Darrell Williams himself looked very good. Darrell Williams averaged 6.9 a clip, going 9 for 62. Had the screen pass, which sealed the game. To me, like I said, bad day for Damian Williams owners because both of those other running backs looked really good filling in. In the receiving game, McCole Hardman, if he's still on the waiver wire, you got to go pick him up. And he shouldn't be because we told you last week to pick him up. He was one of the guys. I mean, he did only catch 2 balls, but he catches an 83-yard touchdown pass. The dude literally can fly. So, he's definitely somebody that needs to be added. I don't know how his role is going to be when Tyreek Hill comes back, and Tyreek Hill is supposedly getting back earlier than expected, but that's just, I still would want McCole Hardman on the team just because he's making plays right now. Same thing with excuse me. Same thing with Robinson. He caught 3 for 41 and got another touchdown. This offense is just really high flying. Sammy Watkins catches 5 balls. Darrell Williams caught 5 out of the backfield. Shady caught 3, had a touchdown reception. Kelsey was just himself, 7 for 89, didn't get in the end zone this week. So, like I said, this offense is just really high flying, and the Ravens are actually a good defense. So wait till this guy goes up against a bad, next week, if this guy goes up against Detroit without Darius Slay, oh my God, he might throw for 505 touchdowns next week. He's literally that good. Anybody any pass catcher in this offense is startable right now. From the game perspective, I do want to say John Harbaugh really coached this game. I feel like it was the Super Bowl. It was the weirdest thing. All right, so there was a penalty on they scored the first touchdown. There was a penalty, a formation penalty where, Chiefs lined up over the center on the extra point. So they decided to go for 2 because they got the penalty and they didn't get in. But then there was a later point in the game where they were down 17 and they scored a touchdown and he went for 2 again. And I don't understand why. It kind of mind boggled me. Like, I don't know why he's doing that because, like, I don't know if he was trying to make it 9 so that they could possibly only have to kick 3 field goals or something. It just was weird. It didn't make it a 1-score game. It was still a 2-score game. They still needed a touchdown and a field goal. Like, from a coaching aspect, this was not John Harbaugh's best performance.
Yeah.
Anything to add?
Yeah, no, I don't really have anything to add. I think, Kev's right. Darrell Williams looked great. Shady McCoy looked great. Shady McCoy left that game at the end, with a re-aggravation, they said. They didn't say.
It was just precautionary. I mean, they were up. When he came out, they were up. Like I said, I think they were almost up 3 scores. Like, they were up 17, I think, going into the fourth quarter. And I think it was more precautionary and just they decided to ride out Darrell Williams for the rest of for the fourth quarter.
Yeah, so, Darrell Williams is definitely somebody who needs to be owned. Like Kev said, he
needs to be owned, and if Damian Williams is going to be out, for sure. I told you guys this last week. Like, last week in week 2, Darwin Thompson was not in there. It was Darrell Williams that finished that game out. So if Damian Williams is going to be out again, I would definitely go pick up Darrell Williams.
Yep. So that's basically all I have for that game.
Yeah, I'm good.
All right. So the next game we're going to get into is the Panthers and Cardinals.
This game was a lot of fun to watch, I'm going to be honest. A lot of good football in this game. A lot of rookie mistakes, but it was definitely a fun game to watch. So we will start with the Panthers side of the ball. Kyle Allen, if you picked him up, obviously you were super happy about it because he went for 4 touchdowns, 261. The Cardinals just, like I said, I try to beat this into your guys' head. When we see trends of things that are happening to certain teams, we'll tell you about it, and we'll tell you to make sure, you're playing those players against these teams. Like the Cardinals, I don't care what the tight ends is at this point. And, you don't get me wrong, they've gone up against some tough tight ends, but, they're just giving up points in droves to the tight end position. In this game, Greg Olsen goes 6 for 75 and 2. Like, that's a huge game from your tight end. You are super happy if you picked up Greg Olsen last week and you started him. I told you guys, Budda Baker's been getting beat. This team has just been getting beat like a drum against the tight end position. They just cannot cover the tight end position. So, Greg Olsen was a great start. Kyle Allen, if you picked him up and started him, he was great. Christian McCaffrey, honestly, the Cardinals played a lot better run defense than the numbers would say. Christian McCaffrey had a 76-yard touchdown run. If he doesn't have that, he would have been, 23 for 70 yards and no touchdown. So, doesn't look as good, but, there was just a huge hole up the middle. He jukes a defender out of his shoes and runs it for 76-yard touchdown. Really boosted up his stats. The one thing I will say about Christian McCaffrey, there is literally no other running back touching the ball in this team, period. DJ Moore had a carry. Reggie Bonifon had 2 carries. When they were at basically the end of the game, they were just running out the clock. But the one thing I will say is the Panthers wide receivers, both of them, are low-end number 2 wide receivers, period. They just, DJ Moore, he only had 2 targets in this game. He had a catch for 51-yard touchdown. Basically, he caught a slant up the middle and outran everyone, and it was just easy. Curtis Samuels was targeted a lot in this game, 7 targets. He had 5 catches, 53, and a touchdown. His touchdown was in the first quarter, like it just, outside pass, and I would almost say like a fade route, but it wasn't really a fade. It was kind of, just crosser over the, to the right side, where he catches it for a touchdown, easy touchdown. And then, Christian McCaffrey, 3 catches, 35 yards. Jarius Wright did catch some balls in this game, but he's not anybody I'm picking up. Chris Hogan actually he's written down here as 2 targets, but he actually had 4 targets. 2 of his targets were penalties, so it ended up getting them, better yardage, but, that doesn't go in the box score. He's not somebody you're picking up. So it's basically the main guys. Greg Olsen, if he's still on your waiver wire, he should be 100% owned, period. And that's about it on the Panther side of the ball. Now, the Cardinals, Kyler Murray, actually, he throws 2 terrible, terrible interceptions. One he just airmailed. Both of them were to Dante Jackson. He airmailed one that Dante just ran under and caught. And then he tried to loft the pass over Dante's head where he jumped up. He got really high up for the ball. I'll give him that. He probably got 11, 12 feet in 12 yards in the air, 12 feet in the air. It was ridiculous. He jumped up and, did his thing. But, Kyler Murray did play better than, the numbers would say. He was actually getting red zone touchdowns, which is a new thing for them. It was nice to see. But, Kyler Murray did one thing in this game that nobody expected because he hasn't done it yet, and he was running. And it was a beautiful thing to watch. He was all over the field. They were designing run plays for him. I don't know if it was because they saw something in the Panthers defense that they could exploit, but he definitely was running the ball in this game. David Johnson, he's almost like, I love David Johnson, but at this point, the PPR aspect is saving him. This offensive line is just so bad. They are really, really bad. It is very rare that he can get up a head of steam and actually run before he's hit, because he grabs the rock and he's met at the line by a defender. He literally has to either make that guy miss or, rip, do some kind of crazy move to get out of it just to gain some yardage. It's terrible. It's annoying, honestly. Christian Kirk has 10 catches in this game. He really didn't do a whole lot. He ended up having 12 targets. The PPR also saved his day. 10 catches for 59 yards. Larry Fitzgerald is just, I've been saying it, I love Larry, and Larry has just been amazing this year. He catches a very easy, bubble screen that he just, at the 3-yard line that he takes in for a touchdown. So he ends his day with 5 for 36 and a touchdown. David Johnson, like I said, got saved by a receiving touchdown. He had 6 catches for 28 yards on 9 targets. Keyshawn Johnson looked okay in this game. Damiere Byrd really screwed Kyler Murray in this game. Kyler Murray probably should have had, 225. Damiere missed a, wide open throw that, it literally hit him and just dropped. Hit him in his hands and he just dropped it. There was another drop by, I think it was Trent Sherfield, where, Kyler threw it and he was literally wide open on the left side of the field. I want to say it was in the third quarter, literally could have been a 60-yard touchdown, and he just, I don't know what he was doing. I think he just lost the ball or whatever, and just it hit him and fell. But, there's not really anybody in this game that I'm picking up, off the waiver wire. It's basically the same guys that are always going to play. David Johnson, if, somebody sees that that 6 catches for 28 yards and a touchdown and is willing to give you something really good for him, I would try to move David Johnson now, because this offensive line is just not going to get any better. David is going to have his big games, but he's going to have a lot of these games. If he doesn't score that receiving touchdown, where Kyler Murray just kind of ad-libs, runs to the right side. It wasn't even, you can tell it wasn't a design play because there was nobody blocking for David Johnson. He was kind of just standing on the left side of the field by himself. Kyler throws it over there and he runs it in for a 5-yard touchdown. If he doesn't get that, his day is just abysmal and you're really pissed off about it. So if somebody sees the box score and sees that he scored you whatever it was, 15, 16 fantasy points, and, thinks that he's going to be good this year, I would move him now. I would move him for Devontae Adams. If you could trade, David Johnson straight up for Devontae Adams right now, I would 100% do it. Just do it, and you're going to be happy in the long run.
I have a question, Steve. Does Kyler Murray throw balls past 20 yards?
Yeah.
Because looking at the statistic, looking at the stats in this game, like nobody averaged more than. All right, Larry averaged 7. After that, there's like 6 yards a catch.
Yeah.
It just seems like they just throw little bubble screens and short
lowest
passes.
in NFL history.
Yeah, it literally is. It's the air raid offense. It's a dink and dunk, get it out of your ball. Get the ball out of your hands quick, get first downs. Offense, but he is taking shots and guys are just dropping them. Like I said, Damiere Byrd it was literally 45 yards in the air, hit him in the hand. Like he had to jump out to get it, but it hit him straight in his hands and he just dropped it. You know what I mean? Like they are taking shots, and the one pass to like I said, Trent Sherfield, that was like 20 something yards down the field. That could have been a 60-yard touchdown. So he is taking shots, but it's not as many as you probably would want. If he's your number one quarterback. But, he's definitely taking shots, and guys are just not catching the ball for him. You know what I mean? It is what it is.
All right, and second question, chances that Cam Newton loses his job?
Oh, 0. No, there's no chance. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think, Kyle Allen looked very good in this game. But, they have a lot more invested in
It is the Cardinals' defense.
Yeah, exactly. It's the Cardinals' defense, and, they really – Kyle Allen looked good because of the 4 touchdowns, but he was overthrowing guys, and he was just – the passes the completions that he was making were, like I said, DJ Moore caught a slant, up the middle, and it was like a 12-yard slant, took it for another, 40 yards, has a 52-yard touchdown. You know what I mean? So those things kind of bolstered his numbers. He looked good, but not as good as his numbers would say.
All right, so we have 4 games left. We got to go through these pretty quick. So, I think we're already pushing the hour-and-a-half mark. Dan, break down the Texans-Chargers game.
All right, this was actually a really good game, but aside for some, great passing, the running backs really. Yeah, aside from some of the, the quarterbacks both having really good bounce-back games. The running backs in this game, Hyde, Duke, Eckler, Jackson really didn't do much of anything. Hyde had the 1 touchdown, but this was a day for Keenan Allen for sure. Phillip Rivers had 318 and 2 touchdowns. Keenan had a monster day. He was targeted 17 times. I mean, this dude, I felt like every ball was thrown to Keenan Allen. It was incredible. Phillip Rivers did throw the ball 46 times, so there was a lot of. This game was a lot of, not so much a lot back and forth, but there was just a lot of chunk yards being taken. So, the yards definitely added up, but Houston really looked awesome in that second half, and LA had no answer for it, aside from a field goal at the very end. But, like I said, Keenan Allen, 13 for 183 and 2 touchdowns. Aside from that, that was basically their receiving yards. Mike Williams, 3 for 45. Austin Eckler had a good little PPR day, 7 for 45. If you add that with his 36 yards, that's getting you like 15, 16 points. So it's not too bad. On the Houston side of the ball, like I said, Carlos Hyde got the 1 touchdown, but he only had 19 yards on 10 carries. Deshaun Watson, as per mentioned, their big bounce back game, 351 yards and 3 touchdowns. He had a really bad game last week against the tough Jacksonville defense. So, it's kind of expected. DeAndre Hopkins, back-to-back weeks, not really relevant. 6 catches, 67 yards. After that first week 1 where he had like 110 and 2 touchdowns, he's kind of slipping off a little bit here. Jordan Atkins was the receiver of the day for Houston. He went for 73 and 2 touchdowns. Kenny Stills was the leading receiver as far as yardage goes. No end zones, but he had 4 for 89. Darren Fells, he got in the end zone. He had 5 for 49. Will Fuller, 5 for 51. I feel like, Will's been right around that 50-yard mark every single game. He has, no touchdowns. So, Will's he's waiting to see what he can do. I mean, he showed he's a lot better than what he's showing this year. He seems, I don't know if he's not healthy. I mean, there's no talk of him being in the injury report right now. So I don't know if they're just, taking him out of the game. They know he's a deep threat. So, he got 7 targets, but he didn't have any, he had 1 30-yard run, but other than that, it was just a lot of small stuff. And that's not really the Will Fuller's type game. They normally take a few shots at him. But it was a good game to watch. It was exciting. See Houston come back. But other than that, I think this is what you're going to get out of Austin Eckler. I think the first couple games, that's what we said, sell. Everyone wanted Austin Eckler, and now you're starting to see that, he may be just an average running back in this league, and he's not going to be. They're going to miss Melvin Gordon sooner rather than later. That's for sure. Because as watching Eckler, he can do some things, but he cannot do Melvin Gordon things. On the waiver wire, all your main guys are already. No one really broke out. Jordan Atkins, he had the 2 touchdowns, but I don't think anybody's really expecting a whole lot out of him at the tight end position. He's not even in our top 15 or 20 right now, so he's kind of a guy that you want to wait and see if he continues his production.
I would say Kenny Stills is probably a good pickup.
We've been beating the Kenny Stills drum for a couple weeks now, so I actually didn't even look to see what his percentage owned is, but it seems like he has, he's had a consistent good year. He's getting in the first week he got in the end zone on that huge play. But he's been steady. So I would, he's definitely someone that if he's available, give him a look, because he's getting targets. He got another 6 targets this week, and it seems like Deshaun likes to throw to him more than he likes to throw to some of the other guys that we thought were going to be bigger roles.
Yeah, he's only 20% owned, so he's definitely a guy you want to go pick up on the waiver wire
for sure.
Other than that, I mean, this was just Keenan Allen being a beast for the Chargers and Deshaun Watson being a monster for Houston. Next game we're going to get into is the Steelers and 49ers. So in this game, it was a little bit rough. The Niners literally should have blew the Steelers out of the game in this one. They fumbled 3 times in the red zone. They turned the ball over twice in their own zone on interceptions that were deflections that were picked off. All in all, to me, Jimmy G did not have a bad game, like as his stat report would say. Like if you look at the stats, it's like, 1 touchdown, 2 picks, 277. But all in all, I thought he played pretty well. Like the 2 interceptions that he threw, one was a deflection right off. I believe it was Mostert's hand. It was the first drive, opening drive. I believe it was Mostert's hands, and he just batted it. He kind of like just fumbled the ball around, and it went right into a Steelers' hands. And then the other one was like a deflection off of I think it was Richie James Jr. came in across the middle, and he hit him in the hands, but it might have got tipped and it went up in the air and caught it. It was just deflections, stuff that, Jimmy G really had no bearing over. It wasn't like he was throwing right to the Steelers. So I do think Jimmy G played pretty well in this game. Man, we told you about the San Francisco running game, and it is the truth. Like, this running game is just so potent. The San Fran running backs just can't be stopped. It don't matter who it is. They put in, Matt Breida. They put in Tevin Coleman. They put in Raheem Mostert. They bring in Jeff Wilson Jr. as their goal line guy. Like, they just can't be stopped. They're all at, Jeff Wilson or Raheem Mostert's averaging 6.6 in this game, goes 12 for 79. Breida goes 14 for 68 and 4.9 a clip. Jeff Wilson Jr. gets you to 2 touchdowns and is clearly their goal line back right now. I don't know how that's going to play out when Tevin Coleman comes back. And as we heard in the news, he could be back after their bye next week. So that's definitely something you want to pay attention to. And, they might be getting Jerick McKinnon back later on in this season as well. So, I mean, this run game is really, really potent run game. It's just the Shanahan offense. It's, stretch the zone runs, and they find running lanes. The receiving game for 49ers is just really mind-boggling because they spread the ball. Like, they have different receivers on the field every single drive. Like, one drive, it'll be Debo and Goodwin. The next drive, it'll be Pettis and Richie James. And then the next drive, it'll be Debo and Richie James. And then the next drive, it'll be, Pettis and Goodwin. It's just really weird how they're using receivers. None of the receivers can get any consistency. And for that, none of them are really getting targeted heavy. I don't think you can really start any of them on a regular basis. I mean, Debo did have 3 for 44 in this game, but he dropped like a 50-yard bomb right in his hands that would have made his day a whole lot better. He might have taken it for like a 60-yard touchdown, but he literally right in his hands and he just dropped it. But other than that, like, George Kittle, he's starting to be a little bit more of a touchdown dependent guy, and I don't think he's scored yet this season. So his numbers have looked relatively pedestrian compared to, some of these other guys. I mean, you're looking at Evan Ingram, he's tearing the league up. You're looking at, Kelsey's going to be Kelsey, and, some of these other tight ends that have been really good, Darren Waller, even Delaney Walker has been good. You look at, Kittle and Zach Ertz, they've basically been these 6 for 50, 8 for 70 type guys, which, is going to finish them in the top 10 of tight ends. But, you were hoping these guys would be,
they're not
top
scoring.
of the line guys. Yeah.
They're not scoring.
They're not scoring touchdowns. And, with Kittle last year, he didn't score that much either, but last year he got so many targets and was running for his yards after catch was just ridiculous. He had 1,300 yards and broke the yardage record for a tight end. This year that's clearly not going to happen. So, definitely Kittle's still a guy you're starting every week. He's going to be a top 10 guy, but you think you're going to have to monitor expectations for him. From the Steelers side of the ball, Mason Rudolph was not good. He had 2 big plays in this game. He had the 76-yard touchdown to Juju, and he had a 39-yard touchdown to Deontay Johnson. But outside of that, those 2 plays right there go for 115 yards. His total in the day was 174. So that means the rest of the game he threw for 59 yards outside of those 2 plays. He really was not very good at all. Like I said, he caught breaks with those 2 long passes, but this should have been a 49er blowout. James Conner was terrible, 13 for 43, did catch 4 for 14. But still, I mean, total, you're not even getting 10 fantasy points from James Conner this week. And that's your number. That's like a first round pick, early second round pick. It's just, that's a guy right now that's killing you and was on the way for one of the biggest busts of the year. But we did tell you that, we expressed our concerns for James Conner before the season. He was just so touchdown dependent last year. In the receiving game, like I said, this is just really rough game to watch. Mason Rudolph is not a very good quarterback. He was actually a potential stream for me in one of my leagues next week because I've been, I was hit hard at quarterback, and he, because they play Cincinnati. And now he's not, I mean, you can take a shot on him, but he was just terrible in this game, in my opinion. If you want a waiver wire guy, Deontay Johnson could be a waiver wire guy. He did get 6 targets, caught 3 for 52, had the long touchdown. And to me, he looks really good out there. They basically benched Moncrief. I don't even think they made him active for this game after, all the drops he had previously. So, it is clear Deontay Johnson is that X receiver in this offense. And, to me, definitely a guy you want to add on your waiver wire. I wouldn't expect him to be huge because I don't think Rudolph is that good, but, a guy that's worth adding if you or need some help at receiver. Vance McDonald got hurt in this game. He only had 1 catch for 10 yards, got hurt. And, nobody else really filled in the tight end that was that big a deal. So that's pretty much it on this game. Next game we'll get into is the Seahawks and Saints. From the Seahawks side of the ball, this was just a ton of garbage time. The Saints were up, 3 scores for a lot of this game, and then, Russell kind of just, did Russell. He's got a never quit attitude, so he just didn't quit and kept going and, wound up with 2 rushing touchdowns, wound up, with 2 passing touchdowns. Tyler Lockett in this game was an animal, had, 14 targets, caught 11 for 54 and a touchdown. His touchdown was actually the earlier one. Russell missed him later. He had him on a 4th down and, just threw it out of his arms. Chris Carson, if you are a Chris Carson owner this week, man, you were looking at that stat sheet like, what the hell happened? Like, he just couldn't get his footing. all game he was just slip. He would get the ball at the line and would just slip and fall right on the ground. He did it like 5 times in the game. Wound up 15 carries for 53 yards. And they wound up using CJ Prosise a lot in the second half. Like I said, they were catching up, playing a lot of garbage time, catch up ball. So I think CJ Prosise is just clearly better in the passing game, which made Carson, almost irrelevant in the second half. And, he, like I said, he just had a terrible game. He was completely ineffective. DK Metcalf did get 6 targets. He was basically he had Marshawn Lattimore on him pretty much all game. They didn't throw Lattimore on Tyler Lockett. Lattimore was on DK Metcalf most of this game and really did a good job on him. Will Dissly is a guy who got 7 targets. He's definitely a tight end that you might want to add as a nice backup or a nice streamer. He winds up catching the touchdown on the last play. I don't know how often this is going to happen for the Seahawks. This is not the game plan they want to execute. Russell Wilson throwing the ball 50 times, but all in all, fantasy wise, Russell Wilson has a great stat game. Teddy Bridgewater, on the other hand, was just a very good game manager. He didn't need to do a lot. They had a, punt return for a touchdown. They had a defensive touchdown. He does throw 2 touchdowns. He throws one to Kamara. He throws one to Kamara and he throws one to Michael Thomas. But all in all, he was really just checking the ball down all game and was managing it, wasn't trying to lose it for him. Kamara goes 16 for 69 running the ball, 4.3 a carry, gets into the end zone rushing and receiving. He caught 9 for 92. It was clear that Kamara is just going to run this offense going forward until Breeze comes back. Michael Thomas got 7 targets, but relatively Michael Thomas usually jumps off the screen at you. In this game, he just didn't. It wasn't. He's going to be. Think Antonio Brown, 2 years ago when Landry Jones came in. That's going to be Michael Thomas. He's going to still have good weeks, but it's not going to be those 11 for 130 and 2 touchdowns. It's going to be more this, you're going to see 5 for 50 and a touchdown. You might get 7 for 80 and no touchdowns, but this is what you're going to have to expect from Michael Thomas until Breeze comes back. Outside of that, there's no other pass catcher that was relevant. Jared Cook only had 1 catch. Ted Ginn Jr. had 2 catches. Nobody in this offense outside of Kamara and Michael Thomas right now is worth adding. And moving on to our last game, Dan, that is you. You have the Rams and Browns.
Yes, the all hyped up. They're winning the Super Bowl. Cleveland Browns. They drop another one. They beat up on a really, really bad Jets team, and this was a big game. This was one of the biggest games of the year that people were hyping up. Sunday Night Football. I thought we were going to have a bit more of a offensive shootout than we had, but that Rams defense, those corners, they locked down Beckham and Landry. It's not hard. It's not easy to do. Landry,
it is when Baker Mayfield is throwing the ball away.
Yeah, Baker did not look comfortable at all yesterday. They were saying that, Darnold was in his face constantly, which he was, and, constant pressure on him. But I think they were saying the only time he was making good throws was when he was throwing little out routes, to quick outs. But anytime he had more than 3 seconds to pass, he was just it was awful. He was making bad decisions. He was taking sacks. Wasn't getting accurate throws. The only bright spot on this Cleveland was Nick Chubb. He had 23 yards for 96 yards, 4 for 35. He had a good day. Nick Chubb's been, unlike the Cleveland Browns, who have been very inconsistent, Nick Chubb has been, their one bright spot on that team. Beckham, 6 for 56. Landry had a couple of yards more, but only 3 catches. They both had 9 targets. So, that's hard. 9 targets and Landry only had 3 catches. He wasn't dropping balls. The balls were just uncatchable that were thrown his way. I think they said that, basically they said that they're still trying to get on the same page. Landry, is his footwork. He's out of his routes differently than what Mayfield expects sometimes. So, but on the Rams offensive game, they didn't do anything special. Garrett Goff had a decent game. He had 269, 2 touchdowns, but he also had 2 interceptions. So he wasn't anything spectacular. He didn't look great to me. I think more so the defense won the game for the Rams. Brandon Cooks and Cooper Kupp both. What's that?
Cooper Kupp. He won the game for the Rams.
Yeah, Cooper Kupp won the game for the Rams.
Friggin' unstoppable.
Yes. Cooper Kupp, 11
Love
receptions.
Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, we talk up Cooper Kupp a lot, and he's proven why we talk him up a lot. I mean, 11 catches on 12 targets. So we basically caught everything that got through to him. 102 yards, 2 touchdowns. And some of these balls that he was catching, there was no one even close to him. So he was dynamite quickness. And Cooks had a good game too. He had 8 receptions for 112 yards. I was big on Cooks this week. It seems like he's starting to really become, a definite weapon. I mean, we know what Brandon Cooks is made of. I'm just, I feel like he is. I feel like he's going to be the most consistent receiver, but I feel like Kupp's got the most potential with the big weeks. Kupp is definitely that looks like he's going to be scoring a lot of the TDs for the Rams. Woods 3 receptions, 40 yards, not a very relevant game. They gave him a couple carries for 18. Todd Gurley with another very, very below average game. And it wasn't even Malcolm Brown getting the workload. It was just they just weren't handing him off the ball when they were. They couldn't get him. Pass, handoff, pass, handoff, pass. Kind of like the old Andy Reid days I used to say, run, pass, run, pass, run, pass. And that's what they were doing. So, I mean, they could never, ever get Gurley any kind of consistency. And whether or not he's disgruntled, I don't know. I mean, they're winning. They're 3-0. So, I'm sure he'll take the record over his body getting beaten up. But, what shocked me even more is he had 0 catches. There was no checkdowns for him. So if you are a Todd Gurley fantasy owner like myself, it's not time to panic extremely, but he is definitely not the Todd Gurley that he has been the last 2 years. And he's shown that, with just 1 touchdown last week, and his yards are not piling up at all. So definitely got to keep our fingers crossed that they start to get him more involved in the offense. You guys got anything?
I will say, I said on one of our podcasts before the year, and I was texting you guys this last night. I don't know if, the NFL is a copycat league, and this team only put up 3 points against the Patriots in the Super Bowl, and I'm just wondering if teams are starting to figure them out a little bit. If McVay might have been figured out. Like, they struggled all game until the end. Like, Cooper Kupp came on at the end with the 2 touchdowns, but this was literally a terrible game to watch. Jared Goff does not look good. He does not look like the same quarterback for the last 2 years. And like I said, I don't know if defenses have figured Sean McVay out. Maybe they have to switch some things up. I don't know if it's Todd Gurley being ineffective. I don't know. But, this is something that you definitely have to pay attention to because this team doesn't look the same as it did the last couple of years, especially last year where they ran through the league. And
their defense looks better. Their offensively, they're nowhere close to that dynamic offense we saw, with McVay's first couple of years, but their defense is awesome. I feel like Talib and Peters are just absolute dynamite shutdown corners. So, I mean, when you have guys like that, you have Darnold, up front, you can just put together so many packages. You have the ability to do so much on defense because you ain't got to worry about, you could put either of those corners on the number 1 on the other team every week. And Darnold's going to be there to plug up the middle and get pressure. I mean, it's awesome for them, to have that those 3 stars on their team.
Yes, it is. I don't really have too much to add. I think Todd Gurley, he's definitely starting off the season slow. I still think he has a lot of upside. He just doesn't seem to be a huge part of the offense. I think and they're winning, like Dan said. So if they were losing, I think he would be in their ear like, yo, give me the ball more. But, at this point, they're winning games. So until they feel like they need to change something, it's going to be tough on Todd, it looks like. But, you're going to get pennies on the dollar right now for Todd. So I would not be trading him. I would just kind of be holding on to him and see what happens.
All right. So that is it for the podcast. Remember, don't forget to check us out on the website at www.fourthandinchesff.com. It's www.4thandinchesff.com. And until next time, peace out, guys.
Peace.
See you guys.